I know that some PoE1 players don't like that PoE2 was separated from PoE1, but I'm telling you, because it happened to me, and I know for a fact this happened to a lot of people. If they didn't separate the games, there is a lot of new players that wouldn't have played the game in the first place. So guys, I have this video here from Gavin. I love Gavin's videos. I think he makes great fucking videos. And this video is called "Can GGG Keep PoE1 Alive While Building PoE2?" And of course, this title caught my attention because I've been talking about this topic a lot. I am mainly right now a PoE2 player, but I also want to play a lot of PoE1. I played the Freesia League and I liked it, and I am excited for 326, and I am going to, of course, play 326. So I do want for PoE to get in this flow where you go from PoE1 League to PoE2 League to PoE1 League to PoE2 League, and we are in a flow like every month and a half, every 2 months, which is we switch it up to the other game, and we are always in the Path of Exile environment, and everything is fucking cool. So I think this video is going to talk about that, and that is why I want to watch it.
Greetings, Exiles, I'm Gav. Path of Exile 2 has been upon us for over 5 months now, and its release didn't come without a cost. For some folks, that cost was trust. This video will be going over the concept of a trust bank. To understand this concept, here's a clip from an interview with Chris Wilson conducted by Josh Strifehays.
Let's take a slight sidetrack here and talk about the idea of the company's relationship with the players. I've often believed that goodwill is a currency. If a company do something that the player base perceive as good and positive, the player base will trust them. And that trust gets built up and built up and built up, and the company can, if they choose to, cash that trust in for very, very large amounts of profit very quickly at the expense of that trust from the future. How do you build up that player trust? What is it that you do as a company that you think the players do trust? And I'm not saying that you're going to do anything that would cash that trust out, but what do you then see companies doing that you think is an unacceptable cash out of that trust?
I see what you mean. Yeah, it's very interesting. The terms like brand deposit and brand withdrawal, we heard at a talk at a conference back in like 2008 or 9, and that was a very, poignant thing that stuck with us from there, where, the idea is treat people well and later you can treat them badly. Sounds like a really cynical way to run businesses, but we've always had a philosophy of doing best by the players because we're up against large companies that have far more resources than us, and the defining characteristic of those large companies often is they inexplicably do stuff that isn't in the best interest of players. And some of those are our major competitors. And so we can differentiate ourselves by...
He was talking in there about Blizzard, 100%.
Actually taking a step back and working out what the right choice in a given situation is. It also helps that we are gamers, like we go home and play games and are the consumers of these products. It just so happens that we get to make them during our day job, and so we know how we would want to be treated. And so we try very hard to be transparent with the community. We, do interviews like this. We talk to different content creators from various different places, make sure to, explain why we do things. We post, there's a news post on pathofexile.com every single weekday for like the last 8 or 9 years or something like that, because we want to have some content there every day for players. If we make a mistake, the players tell us, we apologize, we explain what's going on, we change it if necessary. So we try very hard to do what's in the best interest of the players. Not really to ever try to cash it out later, but it does sometimes come in handy, because sometimes a business has to make a decision which looks bad to the players, even though it's not going to hurt them.
As Chris said, the team at Grinding...
That this dude is really fucking smart, let's be honest, guys. That answer he gave there is really fucking good. But I also think that people bash on Jonathan. I also think that Jonathan gives good answers to questions. Not every single one, but he goes in depth into game mechanics, into game design, into psychology. Jonathan also knows his shit. But people like Chris Wilson more, right? Funny how that statement comes back to YGG in the ass. Treat people good until you can treat them bad. Let's use all the trust from players to fuck them while we fix PoE2. Yes, like right now they are cashing it out. And I think that is the point that Gavin is going to make in here. Maybe I am jumping ahead on this. But I think this is the argument he's going to make. That they created a bunch of goodwill throughout the years, and they are cashing it out right now with the PoE1 debacle.
Your games and the founders themselves are all just gamers at heart. They lived in the worlds that they built. Chris stepped back from active development around 2022, and is now, as of 2025, officially retired from the board of directors. GGG's leadership torch has passed to Jonathan Rogers and Mark Roberts. While the studio's passion hasn't changed, they're currently going through what I would call some growing pains.
This was the fucking best, and now he's gone, bro. Yeah. When I got into the game, now he's gone, dude. What the fuck? But I do like these guys too, dude. I think they both are great. I think that these two guys are really fucking smart. I think the game is in good hands. The problem is that they need people, different people to manage the company. You understand what I'm saying? These guys are awesome game designers, but they need other different people to manage the company that are actually good at management and focus on that and not in game design. Because I think the problem we are having right now with the development of PoE2 and PoE1 is management, not game design, right? Chris Wilson was not any better. He's the reason Ruthless is a thing in PoE1. Oh, okay. I never played Ruthless, but people say that it is really fucking hard. Is it cool or is it too boring, too punishing? I really like Mark. I like him too. And I like Jonathan too, dude. Like the balls that it took to recognize he was cranky on that interview with Season to apologize. Hey, that is a legit dude, brother. That is a legit dude. He knows he's in front of millions of players or thousands of players, and doing that, it takes balls, dude. I really like him too. Jonathan Rogers and Mark are following Wilson's design to strip away all of the things in the game to find out what is necessary. Yep. That is also something that I told the other day that not many people are saying, and I think people are dismissing it. And it is that people are, when we talk about the vision and we meme about the vision, people immediately think about Jonathan. That the vision is Jonathan's vision, but we don't have any proof that that is the truth. It could very well be Chris Wilson's vision, and Jonathan is following through with that vision. Maybe it was both of them, but now Jonathan is the one remaining. Maybe Mark even was in there, and it is the three of them, and now they two are remaining. We don't know who is the true visioneer in here, you know, who has the actual vision. Maybe Chris Wilson was probably on in this too. Remember that he was also developing PoE2 when they decided to separate the game from PoE1. So what I'm meaning is that people are using Jonathan as a scapegoat, and we don't know what is actually happening. That is what I'm trying to say. Also to diminish the hate people give to him that I think is unnecessary.
Before I get into the video fully, this isn't to dunk on Jonathan or Mark, not in the slightest. I respect the hell out of both of them as developers. Jonathan Rogers was one of the original minds behind Path of Exile's combat and core systems. Him and Chris met in their high school library in New Zealand. They bonded while chatting about computers and programming.
That is also something that people forget about Jonathan. Yes, Chris was like the face of the game, but they developed the game together, dude. Since forever. Jonathan knows his shit, dude.
Becoming fast friends. Jonathan is a co-founder of Grinding Gear Games, and while he's held many titles, in the early days he was the lead programmer and technical director for the company. You'd find Jonathan in the occasional interview over the years, during their press touring for League launches, or on a podcast with Path of Exile content creators. But for the most part he was always in the shadows, just tinkering away and making improvements to the game in the back end. In the early days, he was literally the technical backbone of the company, particularly when it came to combat mechanics and calculations, networking, basically everything behind the scenes that makes the game function.
Nice.
Mark Roberts started off as just a player of Path of Exile, though not just any player. He was a top 20 hardcore racer and Giga Chad gamer. Mark was hired on at GGG as a QA tester.
Brother, I didn't know that. So he's a Giga Chad player. He knows what the fuck is going on. That is why he sometimes gives the get good answers. Just get good, motherfucker. Because he's good. Nice. I fucking love that.
Shortly after the release of the game, within just a few years, he was already assisting Chris Wilson with production of League launches and the organization of race events.
Bro, Subtracten, I really like him. He makes great videos. Or used to make, because he stopped doing Path of Exile videos. I really like this dude.
Mark has an encyclopedic knowledge for the game, and he's worn a lot of hats within the company over the course of the game's development. As Chris Wilson stepped back from day-to-day leadership as Path of Exile 1's game director, Jonathan and Mark stepped up and began work on patch 4.0, which was going to be a completely separate campaign with a combined endgame. This patch would later be dubbed Path of Exile 2. Jonathan Rogers became the game director of Path of Exile 2, and Mark Roberts became the game director of Path of Exile 1, and he assisted a lot with the early development of Path of Exile 2, and he's still currently assisting. He made a large majority, if not all, of the boss encounters. Let's talk briefly about how Chris Wilson and Grinding Gear Games earned our trust and respect over the years.
That is a good decision, Chris. There comes a point when you have to let it go, dude. There comes a point when you have to let it go. You already know that the head is not working. For example, I don't know if you guys watch NBA, but the New York Knicks tips. This is the fucking coach for the New York Knicks. Dude, you have to let it go, bro. You have to let it go. What are you hanging on to? This is not it, bro. We all can see what is happening in here. Just shave it, brother. At this point, just shave it, dude. We can see what is happening in here, dude. So I do agree with this decision of just letting it go, dude.
In previous videos, I've already covered the early history of grinding gear games, and I did another video on how the community was carefully curated by Chris, Bex, and others on the team. But I'll still
I watched those videos. Those were awesome videos, dude.
I'll provide a few examples of how that trust was built in the first place. Path of Exile is what I like to call a free-to-try game. You can play the entire campaign through to endgame with no upfront cost. Sure, you might want stash tabs once you get into maps, but you'd only make that purchase if the game has already hooked you. And that's really the key. GGG has never paywalled power or progression in their game. Their monetization model is more than just fair. It's one of the
I told you guys this. I do believe some people say, no, it is pay to win because you need the stash stacks to actually be good or whatever. Brother, Path of Exile, trust me, I come from a bullshit game called Marvel Snap. That is a bullshit monetization, trust me. GGG and PoE has really good monetization that is good for the player. Yes, there are some bullshit microtransactions, but you don't have to take them, which is fucking awesome. And everything in the game can be experienced without paying. Awesome, or it is awesome. The monetization in Path of Exile is awesome. Yeah, at that point, just let it go. Yeah, brother. Maybe Asmon should let it go. At least Asmon isn't like that dude. He can still cover it a little bit, but yes, he should too. But he did it in a cool way, Lord. Yes, he did it in a cool way. I think that Asmon has to do the Nicolas Cage, dude. Check this out. He knows he has the front of his head balding, and he's letting it be. He's rocking the big forehead. He doesn't give a fuck. Asmon tries to cover the part that he's balding, and that makes it worse. Don't do that, brother. Just embrace it. Embrace it like fucking Nicolas Cage did. I think that he made like a hair implant recently, because look at this. He made definitely a hair implant. But he used to have like the big fucking forehead and in here, and it looked great, dude. It looked great. Like this. Embrace it like this, brother. What is wrong with this? There is nothing wrong with this, dude.
Most ethical in the industry. Players choose to support grinding gear games willingly, but your support is never demanded to play the content that they create, and it'll be like that for the entire lifespan of both games. Their consistency in this monetization method and free-to-play nature earned a ton of trust and respect from the community and the ARPG genre as a whole. That model was part of a larger philosophy, shaped largely by Chris Wilson. For years, he was the public face of the game. Chris was calm, measured, and deeply connected to the community through direct communication on the forums, as well as Reddit and in interviews. He had a vision of what a great ARPG should be, a little bit uncompromising in some ways, but never disconnected from feedback. Another key piece of the puzzle that Chris had that Jonathan is lacking is a dedicated community manager, Bex. Bex was the boots on the ground. She was in on Reddit threads, Twitter posts, the forums, you name it.
Hire me, GGG. I can do Bex's work. Hire me, dude. I am here all the time, talking about the game all the time. I am with my feet deep into the waters of the community. Hire me!
Through her, it felt like we had a direct line into the studio. And that's where GGG stands out. They listen. Not always perfectly, not always instantly. But when the community raises its voice, they respond. Whether it's complete overhauls, league rebalances, or quality of life features, grinding gear games is often willing to pivot when the message is made clear. And that's how they built up trust, through consistency, communication, and course correction for over a decade. To this day, GGG at its core still represents what I believe a game studio should strive to be. But under the new tenure of Jonathan Rogers and his vision for Path of Exile 2, there's been a lack of consistency, direction, and certainty. The bank of trust that was built up over the years is being withdrawn from currently.
I told you he was going to make this argument, and he's doing it, which is, of course, and it is because it is truth. Right now, with all the delays for PoE1, bullshit stuff that is happening in PoE2, they are using a lot of the banked up goodwill from the player. That is absolutely true, dude. No, Tencent won't change the monetization. I don't think so. And even if they impact it a little bit, it is not going to be too much. Because I started investigating a little bit about the China server that you guys told me to investigate. That is hard to find information about it. But the information I found is that Tencent was interested, really, in the Chinese server for PoE2, not our server. They don't give a fuck about our server. The server that they care about is the Chinese server, and that server is full with fucking microtransactions, and it has pay to win. That is the one they care about, dude. So no, I don't think they are going to affect too much our server. They have a different game in China. They have a different server. And you have a bunch of different stuff that we don't have. You can even buy gear for a starter character. You can buy gear and gems and bullshit to be more powerful from the start. It is insane, dude. They have a whole different monetization system. I want to make a video about it, but there is not much information, so I have to do a lot of research. But I want to do a video comparing the servers, dude.
Trust is being spent every day that Path of Exile 1 players wait for content that keeps getting pushed back. Patch 3.25 Settlers of Kalgur released on July 26, 2024, and it was PoE1's most successful league yet. That momentum and growth, however, immediately took a backseat for the development of the sequel. Patch 3.26 continues being delayed over and over, the longest gap in the game's history between patches, and it's not even a contest. For longtime players of the game, it's not just frustrating, it's kind of uncharted territory. It's a little worrying. The reason this happened is mostly due to the PoE1 dev team being moved to work on Path of Exile 2. This was an order made by Jonathan Rogers himself. It was a major
This is exactly why I told you earlier that the problem they have is not that much with game design, that we know that the game sometimes had design flaws, but they tend to fix that. The problem is more management, because PoE2 wouldn't be receiving so much hate if PoE1 would be getting the regular leaks, right? If they would be getting the regular leaks, a lot of the people that are mad wouldn't be even playing PoE2. They would be playing PoE1, but they can't because they don't have a patch, right? So the problem is stemming from where then? Management. They didn't manage correctly the teams. They didn't allocate appropriately the resources to develop both games. And then this happened, right? So I do think it is more of a management issue. Is there a way to play the Chinese server? Maybe with a VPN. I don't think you even need a VPN. You can just download the Chinese server, create an account for the Chinese server, and you can play it. But the game is in fucking Chinese.
step in terms of management of resources, and it wasn't really something that Jonathan wanted to do in the first place. But in order to launch Path of Exile 2 into early access by the end of 2024, this was just something that he inevitably needed to do, especially after multiple delays already. The consistency that veterans could once rely on from GGG has slowly been deteriorating. New players who have never touched PoE1 or bounced off of it might not care much at all about the original game. They're just here to enjoy an exciting new ARPG in Path of Exile 2.
Exactly. And that is why I always said, I am like that. And I got hooked so badly to PoE2. The game is so awesome. I like it so much that I completely transformed my whole channel to focus on PoE2. I am still hooked to the game, playing it, I don't know, 5-6 months after launch. And now I want to play PoE1. And I played the Free League and I am going to play 326 because PoE2 hooked me. And I know that some PoE1 players don't like that PoE2 was separated from PoE1 because originally they were going to be the same game, right? And then they took the decision, they made the decision to separate the games. I know that for a lot of PoE1 players that was not the correct decision. But I'm telling you, because it happened to me and I know for a fact this happened to a lot of people. If they didn't separate the games, there is a lot of new players that wouldn't have played the game in the first place because of what he's saying in here. You bounce back from PoE1 because of the graphics, because of the system, because of the bloat, whatever reason you want to have, it doesn't matter. But you bounce back from the game, but you want to play it, you think it's cool, but you bounce from the game. But then PoE2 comes out and it eases you into the franchise and now you can play both games. That is fucking awesome. If it wasn't for PoE2, I wouldn't be playing PoE and a lot of other people wouldn't be playing PoE if it wasn't a separate game. So it is still a big W for the company. If they get into the flow of one season for PoE1 and one season for PoE2 and they stagger them, they will get into a really good place overall, dude. Let's just have a little faith in here, brother. If they stagger the leagues, it is even more for both games. You understand what I'm saying? If they stagger the leagues, having the two games will generate more players for both games than if you only had one game. I don't know if I am explaining myself. But let's say that to use simple numbers, let's say 100K. Let's say that you would always have 100K if you only had PoE1 combined with PoE2. But now that you separated, now you get 150K for each one. Because you cross-pollinate players. If you stagger the seasons, if they are playing at the same time, it doesn't happen because you force people to decide which one to play. But if you stagger the seasons, players are going to bounce back and forth. Not all of them, but a big portion. So you will get more players overall to both of the games.
And if they're not feeling it right now, they might revisit it in a future patch, or when it leaves early access and enters 1.0. And that's completely fair, that's pretty normal. Even though I'm a PoE2 main myself, I personally have apathy for the PoE1 folks. I've seen this before. Different game, but the same issue. The year was 2015. The place, Azeroth. 15 grueling months of content drought in Warlords of Draenor while waiting for Legion to save World of Warcraft. That experience made me understand something important. Content lulls don't just make players bored, they break routines. They make people move on from your game. There's been a few bones that have been thrown to the Path of Exile 1 community, but it's definitely not enough and they deserve more. There was the Necro Settlers League, which was just a combination of Necropolis and Settlers League. It ran from November of 2024 to February 2025. After that came Legacy of Frisia, which had some new content, which was basically all scrapped content
I played this and it was cool.
and ideas that they had. I didn't personally play it, but it did seem like a really neat concept and a lot of cool ideas. But again, it was still Settlers League at its core. And then this month, a special set of private leagues were made available, which is an opportunity for some community-run servers and fresh starts. But again, it's still Settlers League. I sincerely hope that the PoE1 community gets the love and attention that they deserve from GGG.
Same.
They're the old guard. Personally though, I was ready for a fresh start, as well as some modernization. I love PoE1, don't get me wrong, but I lean more toward PoE2's design and direction.
You guys know that I am the same. Some people think that when I say that I like PoE2 more, I am trashing or I am bashing or I am saying PoE1 is bad. No. I am saying both games are awesome. I just prefer PoE2. It is like, brother, I like every Metallica album, but my favorite one is Master of Puppets. That doesn't mean that, I don't know, and Justice for All is bad. And Justice for All is insane. But I think Master of Puppets is cooler. It is just like that, dude. I'm behind the DDoS attacks. Fernando making Jonathan sad.
And WASD. The main draw though was the blank slate that I never really got to experience in the first game. I joined PoE1 pretty late into Breach League back in 2016, and I was always pretty intimidated to make my own builds because I always wanted to push the highest content, so I would pretty much just copy somebody's build every league. But after seeing the insane player numbers achieved with the launch of Early Access, hundreds of thousands of new players as well as crossover from your original audience, that's just crazy. I can honestly see why they're focusing on getting the sequel to the point where the community and devs are happy with it, and they want to hold on to that new audience that they brought in. My main struggle with the development of PoE2 though, is the lack of clarity. Under Chris Wilson, there was always a clear vision. Memes aside about the vision, it's really important to have one. You might not have liked every decision, but you knew why it was being made. You knew it came from someone who had a long-term plan. And honestly, a lot of those plans panned out. Under Jonathan, the vision feels more reactive than proactive. Like it's being discovered in real time instead of shaped and curated. He said before that he just wants to create an amazing ARPG, something that he enjoys because he knows himself. That's a noble goal, and one that I have faith that him, Mark, and the team will eventually achieve. But it doesn't quite give the community a strong sense of direction. Right now, it feels more like a dream than a roadmap. I honestly don't think that there's a single chance that 1.0 hits this.
That is true. That is true. We have no idea how this shit is going, right? We are getting the patches from time to time. We think the patches are going to hit every 4 months, but we don't actually know. They have said in this article, I read this article with you guys. There is a video of me reading this article. They said that the game is going to release probably, like they are targeting March next year. March, April next year. So basically a little bit under a year from now. But we don't know what the true vision is. That is the truth. We don't have a roadmap. We don't have an objective of how the game should look like when it is done. Because they even said that they are going to full release the game with classes missing. That is not a full release. That is a release, not a full release. A full release is with every class and every ascendancy. If you cut out classes, it is a release. It is going to still probably be the game with the most classes out of any ARPG, which is awesome because you will have 9, 10. There is no other ARPG that has that many. It is still cool. But it is not really a full release, is it? So yes, there is a lot of information lacking. Now you can get into the whole other debate that we are not entitled to know this information. They don't know us nothing. They don't have to tell anything. I don't know. I would prefer, both as a player and as a content creator, I would prefer for there to be more information, to be honest. Not only as a content creator, but also as a player. But yes, we could discuss the whole thing that they don't know us anything. I don't know. Or even Diablo 4 came out with a fucking roadmap. Can you do that too, brother? Dude.
Here. And if it does, I think that's a mistake. Combine all of this with the disjointed feeling of patch 0.1's campaign versus how the endgame felt, and then the complete 180 in terms of player strength and loot in patch 0.2. I think the baseline is still being established and they can adjust from there, but we're still pretty far off from having every single class and weapon type, all the skills and support gems, all the uniques and so on. Through all of their blunders, however, and despite all the anger within the community and absolutely deranged Reddit posts, Jonathan, Mark, and the team have pressed on and done their best to please the player base, both new and old exiles. For over a month now, they've had a patch every week or at least every other, and it's slowly been making Path of Exile 2 better and better, all while picking up the pieces and course-correcting the development and content cadence of Path of Exile 1. It's not all doom and gloom. There's definitely another side of the coin to all this. Jonathan and Mark have made some bold and honestly brilliant decisions. The nerfs in patch 0.2 might have been jarring, I completely agree, but it also showed how quickly the team can pivot when something isn't working. 0.1's endgame and power scaling was way off from where they wanted the game to be. They needed to establish a new baseline through major nerfs and work up from there with buffs. Patch 0.2 released on April 4th to mixed reviews, and a feeling of sluggishness from the player base while going through the campaign. On April 8th, after a full weekend of community backlash regarding this patch, both Jonathan and Mark sat down live with Scissorin on his stream for an interview, and for us to hear their insights on some of the decisions that were made in 0.2. A lot of the feedback was given and discussions were had about the state of the game, and it was kind of a bloodbath. But Jonathan, and particularly Mark, agreed on a lot of the community's sentiments, and said that they would look into everything after the interview. Sitting down with a major streamer of your game for an in-depth interview after a negative reception to a patch, that takes balls, man. And they made some extremely constructive changes to address all the feedback head on.
That was the day that we got the meme for Mark, I'll do it today. What is his? Roberts. The last name. Mark, I'll do it today, Roberts. I'll fix it today. Dude, fix a lot of bullshit in one fucking day, dude. And that is, again, we come to the same point. They are great game designers, but the problems we are talking about in here are not because of game design, and they are because of fucking management.
Still aligning with their design goals. Every single patch adds depth, smooths out rough edges, and makes the vision as a whole more tangible. It also feels like the quality of life and gameplay improvement patches are happening much more frequently with patch 0.2, basically every week or every other at this point. It makes the state of the game feel much more like an early access that's being iterated on, rather than a full release, and that's where I'm still hopeful. Path of Exile 2 is being built right out in the open, and our feedback matters, positive and negative. We're going to see the awkward middle stages, the half-finished systems, the balance pivots, all in real time. The remainder of early access is going to be messy, I pretty much guarantee it. But if grinding your games can...
I guarantee to, and I tell you guys, since the game is designed for your first playthrough of the campaign to be challenging, every league launch, people are going to complain about the campaign. We saw it in the very first, when the game launched. It is too hard, the bosses are killing me. We saw it in the launch of Season 2. They are fixing a lot of shit, giving you more loot in the campaign, making it faster, making mobs easier. It is going to be much easier than this time, and people are going to keep complaining because the first time you go through it, when you have no level, no gems, no currency, not anything, it is designed to be challenging, and that is fucking cool. I love it. People are going to complain every single time until they get used to it.
And keep up the cadence of meaningful updates, if they can communicate more clearly about what's coming and reassure their community that both games still matter, then I believe GGG can earn back the trust that they're spending right now to build that bank back up, because we've all seen what this studio is capable of. I think in time...
If you are a new player, that the thing is, and I have said this before, and I am not saying this in a bad way, so excuse me if it sounds in a bad way, but I am really saying it in a very good way. PoE1 players were spoiled by how good GGG was. So you got used to a really good gaming company. And now that things are not working out so great, you are pissed off. And yes, I understand it. But it is because your standards are really high. But for us new players that come from other companies that are bullshit, things over here are looking awesome. Things over here are fucking great. And I am not justifying it. They should still try to strive for the highest possible standard. But I am just explaining the dichotomy between the old player and the new player.
Once the growing pains have fully subsided, we'll see it again. We might already be looking at it. That about wraps this video up. Overall, I've got faith that they'll correct course and be properly managing both games by the end of this year. Do you? And what are your thoughts on grinding your games as a whole right now? I'd really love to hear from you down in those comments.
I just told you, I think they are awesome. I think they are awesome. Everyone makes mistakes from time to time, but I think they are awesome.
The development of Path of Exile 2 isn't slowing down, and before long, it will hopefully be the well-oiled machine that we know the studio is capable of producing.
And the well-oiled machine that I want, I already told you, PoE1, PoE2, PoE1, PoE2, PoE1, PoE2. We will get there and it will be fucking awesome.
GGG has always done well with constructive feedback. That's rare in a game studio. And for me, it's worth sticking around for the end result. We're not just watching a sequel take shape, we're watching a studio rediscover itself. They're learning to balance not one, but two live service games. And they've actually lost some major resources in Chris Wilson, Krishi, and Rory recently. But if they get it right in the end, we all win. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to my channel for more Path of Exile 2 and ARPG content, and drop some build ideas for me for PoE2 down in the comments. Have fun and stay sane, Exiles. Farewell.
This was an awesome video, dude. I really like Gabriel's videos, bro. He brings up cool topics. The videos are well edited. He has a nice voice. The videos make us talk about cool shit about the game. I really like this video, brother. And yes, I think he is doing a good enough job. Yes, they make some mistakes, but everything will be great. I think both games are good. I think both games are going to get better. I think everything will be awesome. For example, you know that Jonathan said that once they have all the microtransactions exported from PoE1 for PoE2 and everything is working fine on PoE2, they are going to take that back to PoE1 and they are going to convert all the engine on PoE1 to the shit that we have in PoE2. So PoE1 is going to look as nice. That is fucking insane. So both games are going to continue to improve and be better, dude. Just trust the process. Only way I would play PoE1 is for cosmetic, like this recent league. Oh yes, in the Freesia League, I earned the cosmetics they gave. And I have them here in PoE2. I don't use it because I like the normal armor that you get. But I got the cosmetics from the Freesia League. That is awesome. Also, to motivate people to play the other one, they should do that more. What they did in the Freesia League, that you unlock the armor and you get it in the other game, they have to do that more. Launch a PoE2 league and then you get the armor for PoE1. And launch a PoE1 league and then you get the armor for PoE2. That will make people want to play the games more. And be in the whole community, in the whole environment, and not divide. I don't like this division that there is like a war between PoE1 players and PoE2 players. I don't want the war. I want the union, and we like everything. And even if you don't like the other game, there is no need to bring it down, right? What do you guys think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I a clown? Am I a genius? Let me know everything in the comments below. I love reading comments even when they don't agree with me. Also remember to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, all that cool stuff. Guys, thanks for being here. You guys are awesome. God bless you. And remember, don't be afraid ever, because this is just a ride.